So let's take a look at a Scrum case study to understand the challenges you're going to have when you start to put Scrum into practice. In this scenario here, first, we should probably discuss a couple of principles that are going to matter. So first question here is, can a Scrum team have two product backlogs? Is this okay? The answer is no, it's not okay, because the point of the product backlog is to give a clarity on priority for the Scrum team. If you have two product backlogs, you have unclear priorities. What's the highest priority? Number one on this backlog or number one on this backlog? So a Scrum team always has one product backlog. Now, can a product backlog have two Scrum teams working on it? Meaning two groups of developers pulling work from that product backlog. Is this okay? Yes, it's okay, because each team has clear priorities. They know what the highest priority item to deliver is. Now you see what's happening here. Once we have two groups of developers pulling work from a product backlog, we already start moving beyond Scrum. But we still can follow the Scrum principles and practices in helping us to deal with this situation. So let's think about this for a second. If I have two teams, two groups of developers that are pulling work from a product backlog, we need some kind of way to collaborate. And this is not an unusual scenario. A lot of times when you look at products you're delivering in your organizations, you're going to have more than 10 people involved. So if we have a group of, say, 15, 20 people that are impacted and working on this product, how can we keep these two groups of developers, for example, aligned? Here's some basic patterns that I would recommend to use. First thing is align the sprints. If you have multiple teams working on the same product, it makes sense to start and end the sprint on the same day. If we have the aligned sprints, it makes it much easier for these teams to collaborate. For example, the sprint planning event. We should do this together, right? Because we have two groups of developers that are pulling work from a product backlog. So it makes sense that we do the planning together. At least the first two parts of the planning, the why and the what, where we're figuring out who's going to work on what. The how part, when we're breaking down those PBIs into tasks, that's going to be separate because each group of developers is going to have their own sprint backlog. They're going to be working on their own PBIs. So let's keep going in the sprint. We do our sprint planning together. Each group of developers figures out what they're going to work on. Daily Scrum. Are we going to do this together or separately? Separately, right? Each group of developers has their own sprint backlog. Let's keep moving on. Backlog refinement. When we're taking a look ahead on that product backlog and preparing things for next sprint. Here, it makes sense to get both groups together because they're working off the same product backlog. The sprint review is another opportunity for us to get together to inspect and adapt on that product. Remember, both groups in this case are working on the same value, the same increments, the same product. So it makes sense that they get together with their stakeholders to discuss the product so everybody can learn from what everybody did the last sprint. The sprint retrospective is for me a question mark. In some cases, it's going to work to do it together because the teams share similar problems. In other cases, it's not, in which case they would do separate retrospectives and maybe spend 5-10 minutes afterwards sharing the outcomes of their retrospective since they're working on the same environment. There's one more thing they need to have in common, which is a definition of done. If you think about it, if I'm the product owner of that product backlog, if the two groups of developers have different definitions of done or different standards of quality, it's not the same for me whether team A or team B works on it. I care which team works on it. That shouldn't be the case. So these teams need to have a common definition of. Now, these basic patterns are going to enable you to have multiple Scrum teams collaborating together, which again, might be the case when you're trying to implement Scrum in the real world. So now let's go into a specific case study. In this case, I'll be talking about an experience I had in a mail operator. Now, in this case, we had two teams. One team that was focusing on the sorting center, so the machines that sort the mails and get them distributed. The other team was working with the business customers, companies who are buying tracked mail services. So here we have the two teams, the sorting center team and the business customer team. One led by the sorting center product owner and the other led by the business customer product owner. When I started working with them, one of the questions I raised was to say, let's go through an imaginary scenario here. Let's imagine we're 10 sprints into the future and the red team is doing really, really well. So they're already busy with, let's say, the last item in their product backlog, this one over here. At the same time, the blue team is not doing so well. They're struggling. A couple of people got sick. They had some problems. Some work was underestimated. And after 10 sprints, they're still busy with the second blue item. So if you take a step back here and think about the tracked mail value stream for this postal operator, which PBI would likely have more value? The last red one or the second blue one? Think about it. Most likely the second blue one is more valuable, which raises the question, why do we have a group of people busy working on that last red PBI? The product owners understood what I was suggesting. Why don't we create one product backlog where we can merge priorities between red and blue? so that at all moments we could be reacting to the highest priority for tracked mail, be it red or be it blue. And they liked the idea. So I organized a 4-hour workshop with them that we can do this backlog merge. What happened? The workshop lasted 15 minutes and was a complete failure. Why? Think about it. What happened in that meeting? The blue product owner walks in and says, yeah, very nice, this idea to merge the backlog, but my stuff has to be on top. And the red product owner laughs and says, haha, very funny, my stuff has to be on top. Each of these people were incentivized to focus on priorities for their products, for the blue product or the red product. That's how their bonus system works. That's how their rewards work. That's their goals they have for the year. So of course, they're going to be focusing on that. It's impossible for them to agree on merge priorities. So I took a step back and thought about, okay, let's think about Scrum. What is Scrum really asking from the product owner? What does the product owner really need to do? And essentially, one way to look at it is there's two main responsibilities for a product owner. A product owner is going to be prioritizing and a product owner is going to be clarifying. So prioritizing means the product owner is going to be deciding on the order of what the developers work on. And clarifying means they're available to answer the questions they have. Now, in this case, these people couldn't prioritize. So I got a little bit smarter and I said, okay, let's play the hierarchy game here. There must be somebody in the organization who has responsibility over the entire tracked mail value stream, somebody that can decide over these people. So eventually I found the director, I explained to them the situation, and I said, I need somebody who can prioritize between red and blue. What did this person say? Yes, I'm that person. I have that power. So I say, great, you're the tracked mail product owner. To which they reply, yeah, hold on. I have the power to do this, but I don't have the time to go to these planning meetings you're talking about in daily Scrum and I don't have time for all this stuff. And here's a basic challenge you have when trying to implement Scrum in the real world. When Scrum talks about the product owner, remember, this is Steve Jobs. This is an empowered person who can decide on the product. In the real world, however, typically the person with the power doesn't have the time and the person with the time doesn't have the power. So how do you address this issue? How did we address it in this case? Is we created something of a product owner team. The only thing I was asking from this director was to prioritize, to focus on that one responsibility of the product owner because they had the power to do it. I did not need them to clarify as long as they were willing to delegate that to the product owners who were already working with the teams, the red product owner and the blue product owner. And of course, this was not an issue because they had already delegated that in fact. So we managed to put this in place where we had one backlog with merged priorities between blue and red. That means these tracked mail teams or the tracked mail environments, they now had the flexibility to switch priorities between blue and red. If red becomes the next strategic priority for the next month, great. We move all the red stuff on top and everybody's focused on red. The director I found became the product owner of this backlog. Don't worry too much about terminology here. The words we were using there, we're calling this person the chief product owner. But the real trick here is these three people, the chief product owner, the red product owner, and the blue product owner were acting as a product owner team. They had a clear decision mechanism, the chief product owner decides, and they had clear delegation mechanism for clarifying the questions from the team, the red product owner and the blue product owner. And together, these three could act as the product owner that Scrum is required. So in this scenario here, of course, these two backlogs disappear. I no longer have a red backlog. I no longer have a blue backlog. I now have one merged backlog. Is that correct though? Or am I missing something here? Let's look at this. If I still have a red team and I still have a blue team, I still have an issue, right? What happens if the director, the chief product owner says, okay, blue is the highest priority. Everybody working on blue. What's the red team going to say? Okay, very nice, but we're the red team. We do red work. Give us a red PBI. For this model to work, we needed to work on something else. We needed to create real cross-functional teams, which in this scenario means turning the red team into a blue-red team and turning the blue team into a red-blue team. What this means is that both of these teams can work on any type of PBI, be it a blue PBI or a red PBI. And this is important because it gives us the flexibility to prioritize. And it also brings us to the second key challenge you're going to have in putting Scrum into practice in the real world, which is to create real cross-functional teams. How did we achieve this at the Postal Operator? A couple of things needed to happen. First of all, I reached out to the manager of these teams to tell them, you're going to have to lose a little bit of productivity in the short term because these people need to do some knowledge sharing and learning so that in the mid to long term, we can see a big uptick in delivery. This was a tough sell. We had to go negotiate with the business. It was not an easy thing to do, but we made sure they understood the message. Look, there is a clear benefit here. We're trying to have more flexibility and to improve our practices. We bought some time, so we were able to do it. We also rotated people from the teams. We had somebody from the red team join the blue team for a sprint and vice versa, to give them an opportunity of doing different types of work. Another thing I did was make sure that we created a skills matrix, a representation of all the skills we need to deliver red and blue work, and then all the people we have on both teams, so that they could self-evaluate how good were they in a skill and how good they wanted to be. And this allowed the team to make the situation transparent, so they can collaborate together in that knowledge sharing and improve on the key knowledge gaps we had, so that we could be really cross-functional. So 2 key takeaways here. First is product ownership. It's going to be difficult sometimes to find the real product owner, the person with the power to prioritize and decide on all those important things, to give us decision speeds, to allow the Scrum team to quickly take decisions and react to what they're learning. The second challenge are the cross-functional teams, creating these teams able to deliver an increment, value within one sprint. This is going to take some time. You need to train people. You need to share some knowledge. If you focus on doing these 2 things well in the short term, you're going to have great results in the long term.